Hello, everyone, and welcome once again. I am so excited for our guest today as we continue our talks on the housing crisis, not only here in Arizona and nationwide. We're specifically talking about how it pertains to our senior and aging environment. And so, one of the first people I thought of to try and connect with, and I'm so honored that he would squeeze some time in for us today, is Steve Flynt. Steve Flynt is the current president of Provincial Senior Living, as well as the chief operating officer of Solstice Senior Living. And so I think, Steve, we've known each other since around 2014-ish. I was trying to
Been a
think back
while.
when we even connected. So I'm so glad that you could take time today. So welcome and thank you for being here.
Sure, it's nice to see you again, Sandy.
Awesome. Well, let's start out if we could for our listeners and viewers. And I'm always curious to share with them and wanting to share as far as how our guests got involved in the industry, what brought them here and why did they stay here? It's not an easy industry to stick to over the years. So can you share that with us?
I can. It's actually one of my favorite questions, and I ask that on every person that I interview. I say, "What's your why?"
Yep.
There's a lot of things a lot of us could be doing, but so I graduated from college and took a job as a general manager of a country club and managed a country club for a few years and played a lot of golf. Managed the restaurant and the bar and the pro shop, and it was fine. It was a great job. Moved to Kansas, which probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but I took the job in Kansas and I graduated at Oklahoma State University. Did that for a few years, and my grandfather and I were very close. And a couple of my granddads were World War II guys, and I loved listening to their stories as a kid. I was always more comfortable really with seniors. And my granddad, well, let me back up. My dad was in the military, lifetime military guy, was gone quite a bit. So I spent a lot of time with my granddad. He was just kind of my hero. I mean, he was just somebody I looked up to. And when I was off running a country club in Kansas, he had gotten to the point where he had some dementia and that it kind of became full blown Alzheimer's. And he wasn't safe to live at home, and we found moved him around a couple times before we found some place. We found a great VA home in Amarillo, Texas, that just loved on him, did a great job with him. And it seeing what we saw initially, the first couple of places, we went to a couple places that were brand new, and that doesn't necessarily equate to great care, and
Yes,
found
you
out
and
that
I
in a
know that
hurry.
well.
The VA home was old, but it was clean, and the staff was wonderful, and they were just so happy, and they made such a difference every day, not just to the resident, but to me as a family member. It had a big impact on me, and I went back and kind of contemplated my life. I was pretty young. I was in my mid 20s, and I said, you know what? I'm going to be. At the time, there wasn't a lot of purpose-built memory care, communities. So I said, I'm going to become a nursing home administrator. So I packed everything. I gave 3 months notice, packed everything I owned in my vehicle, and I drove to Denver. I decided I wanted to live in Denver. Went back to school, got another degree, and became a nursing home administrator. And that was 34 years ago, 34 and a half years ago, believe it or not.
Wow.
And gosh, it's gone by fast. And a lot has changed, but I just knew my dad was a lifetime military guy, and he passed away young. He was only 64 of
Wow.
cancer. But the last, I don't know, half of his career, he kind of moaned about the military. And I thought, gosh, Dad, you've got a master's degree. You could do, there's a number of things you could do. Get out.
Yeah.
So I made a commitment to myself that I would do something I loved. If I don't get up and get to go to work, I'm out. I'm going to do something different. And
Right.
this has just been such a fulfilling uh, field for me. And I do think that we make a difference. I think we save lives. I truly believe that. I think too many people are aging at home alone, and we're not meant to be alone. I think
Right.
socialization is everything. So anyway, that's how I ended up getting into senior living and why I'm still here. and
That's
still love
all.
it. Still love getting up and going to work.
That's awesome. Yeah, and you hit on something that we share with our families a lot. And I just talked to somebody yesterday about it is, as we age, we tend to isolate in our homes and we don't have that social factor. And not that people have to be actively engaging with others and all that. It's just we're social beings and just having people around us speaks volumes. So definitely can relate to that. And yeah, it's just so important. And I think people just don't think much of that and how significant that plays in our lives that we don't even know. So you kind of touched on as far as you made a comment that things have just changed over the years. And is there anything that stands out to you as far as what you've seen? I mean, we've been in the field, I think probably I've been in about 35 years. You've been probably a little longer than that. But what changes stand out to you from maybe even a decade ago to where we are now? And how do you see maybe that changing going forward?
Well, my comment's going to probably go beyond a decade, but what
That's
was
okay.
once skilled nursing was, became assisted living, and assisted living really became independent living. And as reimbursement changed in the skilled nursing world, and we became so regulation heavy, skilled nursing's become short-term rehab for the most
Mhm.
part, unless you're truly, bed bound and have just enormous acuity needs. Um, I think in the last, I'll go to post-COVID. I actually think we've even seen a big impact because I think one, what I said earlier about socialization became so evident after COVID. Isolation was not good for these residents, and a number of people really had a hard time coming back from the isolation. So I think we realized how important that was and how important life enrichment is. And I'll use my mom as an example. My mother lives in one of my former communities, that it was my former company. And she lived at home alone. She didn't retire. And I think she was 71 or two. And the hospital, she was a medical professional. Her hospital was her socialization. It was her everything. She retired and went home and just sat in front of the TV, and she started failing. She started slipping mentally. She started falling. And I thought it was going to be so difficult because mom was kind of an introvert, and I thought she'll never go for this. And I sit down and had my sisters and I had a conversation with her about moving into assisted living or independent living at the time. And we took her through a community. And I wanted her to see a few. I didn't want her to say, you have to move into my community. I wanted it to be her choice. But she heard, well, somebody's going to clean your apartment, change your sheets once a week, provide, all of your meals. You don't have to cook. You don't even have to see a bill. We'll set you up on ACH withdrawal because as you get older, you get all your explanation of benefits and you get all this
It's
mail.
confusing.
It is so confusing. And she doesn't have to see any of that now. And all she has to do is live, have
Yeah.
fun.
Right.
And so I thought, well, okay, we'll try this. So we moved her in, sold her house, and I thought, gosh, and I'm a good son. I called every few days for years, every few days. I still call, every week. But after about 2 weeks, I would call and she was too busy to talk to me. And I was like, God,
That's
that's
awesome.
exactly what I was looking for. She had
That's
friends.
awesome.
She was doing activities. She's a big Dallas Cowboys fan. She's watching the game with the girls,
Oh, that's hilarious.
and it just gave me such peace to know she was with people with a similar situation. And I think that's probably prolonged her life several years. So
Right.
she's independent living for a few years. Eventually, we last year moved her into assisted living, uh, and she's got struggles like a lot
Mhm.
of people in their 80s. But
Right.
the fact is, she's with people that care about her, and she has friends, and that helps me so much because she's a long ways away. I can't get there all the time.
Right. Right. Well, and it's very similar to my own situation. My parents were living, I was born and raised in Milwaukee, and the culture, the community has changed over the years. And it was just my mom and dad. After all of us kids left, they were sitting in the house not doing. My dad is probably me on steroids as far as being social and needing to be with people. And we started noticing a little bit of changes with him. After he retired, of course, he's not one to retire. So he went into the floral delivery, and that was his way of connecting with people. And so fast forward ahead, we moved them both into an independent living community back in Wisconsin. And, my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 2 years ago, and he has his routine. My mom has her people to connect with. And, a lot of times families feel guilty that they need to take them in. And of course, we had those dynamics within our own family as far as what's the best situation for them. But you had touched on it too. They're around people their own age. They have the same life experiences. They can establish these routines, and they don't have to worry about the bills. They don't have to worry about this, that, or the other. And so it just goes to show that I think there's still, well, I know there's still that stereotype out there as far as when you say assisted living or senior living, and our parents or our aging community just has this mental picture of the cold skilled nursing corridors and wheelchairs in the hallways, and it's just such not that at all at this point. And so it's just such a unique opportunity for our aging right now that I hope more and more become aware of.
I
So
agree with you. And I think we need to educate people. I remember discussions a few years ago about, companies discussing, should we remove senior living from our name because does that have a negative connotation? Well, if it does, it's our own fault.
mhm, yeah,
We need to make certain that people understand and know that it's a place to thrive. It's
yeah,
actually freedom, it's independence, it's being around people, it's having people there to help if you need it.
right.
So I think we need to do a better job as an industry of educating people about what we really do.
Right. And I mean, it's a new journey. People see it as, oh gosh, this is my last play, all this.
Yeah.
It's actually such a new journey and opportunity. And like you said, we're huge. Our company is huge on educating the community. And you just can't educate enough to get that stigma out there, changed so that people see it as it's vibrant living, it's an opportunity, it's engagement, and the quality of life is just so much better. So in your travels and in your years of doing what you do, if you if you could change one thing about senior living, what do you think that would be? Or what would you like to see change?
I just don't want people aging alone. I think that is paramount to me, and part of why at 60 years old, I'm still passionate about moving this forward. I've seen it with my mom. I saw it with my granddad. I've seen it with a number of family members. And then, of course, doing this for so long, I've made so many friends in the business. And every now and then, if I'm having a really bad day, I've got a folder that's got cards and letters and things from past residents and families. And sometimes it's good to read through some of that and say, you know what, I make a difference
Right.
in what I do. And because we get so busy with the business of the business, if you will,
Mhm.
um, it's nice to remind yourself the passion behind what you're doing. So if I could change one thing, it would be that one, there's some place for everyone. And some states do this better than others. There's many states, Tennessee's one of them, that has some subsidized housing for seniors that perhaps don't have a lot of funds. And unfortunately, we're running up against now a generation of people aging into our wheelhouse, if you will, that didn't save like the generation before them.
Right.
And gosh, with inflation and labor costs and in many states now, some of these just extremely high minimum wage mandates,
Right.
you can, you've got to try to push some of that through,
Yeah.
but you can't push all of it through because the resident still has to have the money in the bank to be able to afford to move into
Right.
your community. So I'm proud of what we do, and we do offer an affordable solution with the companies that I'm with today. My background for so many years was uh, high end. I mean, it was difficult to afford our product. And one of the things that attracted me, frankly, to this 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, was an opportunity to kind of give back and provide a great product. We've taken older communities, renovated the communities, made them beautiful, but with maybe no frills. Not our communities don't have a sports bar. You know, there's a place for that, and there's a time for that, and there's
Right.
certainly a population that wants that. That's not our population. That's not our target market. And in many states or many markets, residents can't afford us on their Social Security. And then sometimes with just a little bit of a supplemental, they can afford us. So,
Well, and you touch on something we always try to share and talk with our families about, and that is some of those best communities out there don't have all the frills. They don't have the wine cellars. They don't have the movie theater. You know, I think a lot of times when we go in and see these properties with the adult children or the adult family members that of our clients is they're looking through their vision, their eyeglass, and they're not looking through the eyeglasses of the person that's actually going to be moving. And you got to think back when they were maybe our age, you know, they had it simple, and it's not all about the glitz and glam. It's about comfort and just homey feel. I've been in Solstice of Mesa here, and it's a beautiful property. I mean, it's nothing elaborate and you know, glitz and glam. It's a very homey feeling. And, you know, I want to talk a little bit more towards, since we're kind of getting in that direction here and what our call is about, and that's the affordability of housing. You know, a lot of people that we come across, they just have, like you had mentioned, their Social Security that they're living off of. I had somebody come to us, gosh, last month, and it was so sad. They had $300 a month that they were trying to find housing with. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how am I going to help this person? I mean, typically we get 800, 1,200 a month, but that's just that's bottom line. That's not taking into consideration care needs on top of that. And I know, you know, the properties that you are with, they're independent living. You're not looking at that whole care component. And so even from just a base independent living environment, a lot of them start at 2,200 a month. And so, you know, I don't know, and I guess I'd like to hear your thoughts and input on where do you see this going? I've started talking with some of our local officials, senator, governor's offices, and I'm trying to coordinate some roundtables. But how do we get attention to this financial crisis? Our aging population, they may have saved, but they're outliving the savings at this point. We're living longer. So what can you add to that or thoughts?
well, I think one, certainly the age of the population is roughly 84, 85 in my communities. And and we're independent living with supportive services. So if we're trying to deliver, 3 meals a day, a clean community, um, the safety and security, transportation to a doctor if you need doctor's appointments or to activities. Um, and then if you need additional services beyond that, you can purchase that from a home care provider that we have vetted out, that leases space in our communities. But I think getting recognition, it's so important that we participate. We're all busy, but to participate in there, locally, as you know, I was with Arizona Alpha for years when I was in Arizona, and advocacy. Arizona Alpha does a great job with advocacy. A lot of state organizations do, but even locally on the more micro level, we have a lot of communities in smaller markets. I mean, we've got the Phoenixes and Chicago's and the Dallases, but I've got Fenton, Missouri, Bangor, Maine. I've got a lot of smaller tertiary markets,
Mhm.
and civic organizations, having your leadership team participate with the Chamber of Commerce so that the discussion starts.
Mhm.
Bringing Rotary, Lions Club, Seroptimists, Kiwanis, bringing those civic organizations in, allow them to hold meetings in your community, sell them a nice meal for a low cost, and it gets exposure to your community, exposure to your residents and what it's really like. Um, and listen to the stories, because even the residents that are getting subsidized some way will tell you they don't have much left. They don't have much left over. They don't have much extra. Um, Making sure that we hook people up with veterans benefits if they perhaps could qualify for veterans benefits, because you can qualify in independent living and assisted living for veterans benefits. So I think we need to be, especially in those small markets, the experts, so that we can answer questions, we can guide people to the right place. But it helps us a lot if we've got that exposure with the civic organizations, because many of them are in local politics.
Right.
Many of them have a voice and an opportunity to say, look, we've got to do something about the housing. We seem to, as a country, and I'm going to try not to get political here, but we seem to want to support a whole lot of causes. We need to support the senior living affordability cause.
Right.
And it's something that we need to be talking about on a frequent basis at every opportunity,
Right.
because it's scary how many people are out there that may not have an option.
Right. Well, and soon we're going to have more people over 65 than under 65. And I mean, right now, even with the lower income, just senior apartments that we connect with, they have wait lists, 2 year wait lists. And it's so minimal as far as what options are out there. And I'm so glad to see properties like Solstice of Mason. You had commented that, or maybe this was before we hopped on the call, but where do you see it going as far as more communities coming in? I think you had mentioned maybe your company is going to possibly have more coming in the areas, but
Yeah, so
what are
what
your
we have
thoughts?
right now, I've got Solstice at Sun City West,
Mhm.
and then I've got two that come on July 1st, in one in Peoria and one in Glendale, that will be part of the Provincial Senior Living family. They are transitioning to us as the manager on the 1st of July. So we're excited about those, and we'll do what our general RMO, we're a management company. Both
Mhm.
both companies are management companies. An owner will come to us and say, and in particular, and I'm proud of this, it's all we do. Both companies, it's all we do is independent living with supportive services. We wake up and think about independent living and supportive services. My whole team, that's all we do. We're not worried about licensure. We're not worried about staffing and assisted living. We are simply focused on providing great food. We've got a very strong culinary program I'm very proud of.
Awesome.
A clean community. And again, they're older buildings. So we come in, we do an evaluation of the community, and then we go to the owner and we work out a CapEx plan with the owner and say, we need a capital investment. This community hasn't been renovated in X number of years. We need to come in and do carpet, furniture, paint, room turns. We'll make it up to date and very nice. And we did, I'm trying to think what year I did it. It's 2022. We did a total renovation at Sun City West, which is our largest community, by the way, 195 units. Turned out beautiful, beautiful community. So you can still have a nice, up to date, there's a return on investment to capitalize those communities, because the demand is out there and there's plenty of seniors for everyone. Uh,
Mhm.
you get your competitors, and yes, we've all got competitors, but there's plenty of seniors out there. You just got to reach them.
Right. So I guess in closing, because I promised I wouldn't keep you too long, what would you recommend to those individuals who are on those limited budgets, who aren't needing care, but they just need a place to call home? They just need a simple environment, but they're on a very limited income. What would you recommend to those folks?
Well, I would say first, call, ask questions. Don't ever assume that you can't, because we've gone through this in some markets where people just assumed because we had a nice remodeled building that they couldn't afford us. Well, you can. and we've got a wide range depending on market. And again, we've got to consider, obviously California is higher because the
California.
cost of living, the wage, the requirements are so much higher. Seattle,
Right,
$20 an hour minimum wage. All culinary workers in California, $20 an hour minimum wage. So in those markets, you have to pass some of that through. So it's a little bit more expensive. But
right.
we've got some markets where you can get into a beautifully remodeled studio apartment for 1595, $1,600.
Mhm.
Um, and there's help out there for a number of people that don't know what's out there. Again, going back to veterans benefits, and there's a number of really reputable organizations that can help with that, because it's overwhelming to think about how do you qualify, how you do the paperwork, but there's some great groups out there that can help with that. So that's my first thing, is just ask questions. And if we can't help you, certainly you can call one of our communities. If we can't help you, we'll have people there that might have resources to say, have you thought about this? Have you called here? Because honestly, whether we can help that person or not, we want to be a resource in the communities that we work in.
Right. Okay. Perfect. Well, Steve, I appreciate it. It's been a while since we connected, but again, I appreciate you hopping on this morning. You have some great insight and information for our listeners and viewers. So, if you haven't already, viewers and listeners, if you haven't already liked our page, share it. Looking forward to having a lot more of these type of conversations and things that are kind of in the spotlight for our aging population. So again, thank you, Steve. It was awesome connecting with you today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Sandy. Nice seeing you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
you too. Take care.